Hey, I'm Tosh, and this is Nosh with Tosh, a magical cooking show where I'm gonna teach you how to make one really big dish, and then we're gonna transform it into two totally different meals so that you can eat for days without boring yourself, your friends, your family, or your pets. Today, we're gonna start with Kofta Pita sandwiches and then transform it into a Moroccan breakfast scramble and a big, fresh, summery salad with garlic pita croutons. And at the end of each episode, we're gonna make a dessert that takes 5 minutes or less that you can make with no recipe at all. Oh, you wanna know who I am? That makes sense since I'm invading your living room. I'm Tosh, I'm a West Coast native. I was born in San Diego, I grew up in Oregon, and I currently live in Los Angeles where I have been working as a private chef for a decade. In that time, what I've learned how to do is cook smarter, not harder, and that's what I wanna share with you so that you can eat really, really, really well and spend more time doing the things that you love. Let's cook. It's time for kofta. What is a kofta, you're asking? Well, simply put, it is a meatball. It is typically made of a ground protein, and it's combined with herbs, garlic, and onion. In different parts of the world, they're cooked differently. In Morocco, you cook it in a tagine. In Greece, they're typically fried. In Istanbul, you might have them grilled. All you're gonna need are these few little guys right here. In this bowl, I have 1 pound ground beef. You can use any kind of ground meat that you want. So I have a 22% fat ground beef. More fat equals more flavor. And to that, I'm gonna add 1/4 of an onion. I happen to have this little bag of onion in the fridge, and I hate to waste, so we are going to use this onion. For the kofta, we're gonna be pressing them together into meatballs, so everything that's going into it, you wanna be really, really finely diced. Typically speaking, I'm pretty chill about a rough chop, but for this in particular, no. Must be fine. And you just chop, chop, chop. If you gotta get a little cry in here, you know, had a rough day, let it out. And once you're at a point where you just don't want to do it anymore, you toss your onions into the bowl. I'm also gonna add 2 cloves of garlic, a 1, a 2, because everything tastes better with garlic. Peel the skins off. If you want to practice your knife skills, you can mince it by hand. If you want to be a little lazy like me, then go ahead and use your microplane zester. And if you don't have one of these, I highly recommend it. Going in. To that, I'm gonna add 1/4 cup of herbs. You can use any herbs that you've got on hand. That's what's so fun about kofta. It's great to use up the little dregs of whatever odd herbs you have going on in your fridge. My favorite herbs for this are dill, chives, parsley, this one is a little sad, and mint. Together, they're super fresh, they have a bunch of different flavors, and they're really gonna make these meatballs sing. And for this, these are my favorite herbs. You can use whatever you have at home. If you have a rosemary bush in the garden, you can use rosemary. Whatever you have lying around is gonna be great. So I'm gonna use about an equal proportion of all of them, and I'm gonna chop them all at once. You'll notice I wasn't particularly precious when I picked the parsley off of the stems. I wasn't particularly precious with the mint. As long as you're using the parts of the stems that are relatively tender, I just use them. It all tastes the same. So I'm gonna reserve some, and we can use it to put over our pita sandwiches in the end. This is about 1/4 cup. In it goes. Before we keep going, I'm gonna do a quick cleanup. I'm a huge fan of clean as you go. That way, when you're done cooking, you can sit down, eat, and enjoy. None of these dishes after dinner. Now that we're clean and tidy, I feel good, and we're gonna build our kofta. I'm gonna add a teaspoon of salt, about a 1/4 teaspoon of red pepper flakes. If you're not a fan of spicy, this is an option. And then my secret ingredient to the kofta is using a spice blend called Ras Al Hanout, which is a Moroccan spice blend. It means head of the shop or top shelf in Arabic. It's a combination of all the delicious flavors that you would want to add in here individually in one compact package. So it's just much less work for you. And this one's from a company called New York Chouk, and I love it. You need a lot of it, 2 tablespoons. Because this is where the majority of the flavor is going to come from. So give it good shake. And then you get your mix on. When you're mixing ground meat, always, you want to do it relatively quickly so we don't start to melt the fat. And you also want to be relatively gentle as you're mixing it around, because the more you compact it and the more pressed it gets, the more likely your meat is to end up tough and chewy. If you're doing it long enough that the meat feels room temperature to you, just put it back in the fridge before you actually make them. So we want to make sure that the fat is cold. So once you've got it nice and mixed, I'm gonna make my little koftas. This is totally a personal preference. However you want to shape them. You could do them like traditional meatballs. For kofta, I prefer them to be a little bit more of an oval. So first, I'll roll it gently into a little bit of a log, and then I give it a light pressing, so it's almost a football. And this way, I feel like this height and this shape is great because you can get lots of good crisping on the outside without totally overcooking the inside, and it'll still work pretty quickly. Kofta, kofta, kofta. Once you've got them all formed, we're gonna take them over to our pan, we're gonna get a good sear on them, and we're gonna cook them through. I'm gonna add a little bit of oil, just enough to coat the bottom of the pan. It's already preheated over medium heat. When you put your kofta in the pan, anything that you're trying to sear ever, anything that you want good caramelization on, you have to leave space in between each and every item so that you don't create any steam. Steam is the enemy of crispies. After about 2 minutes, you should have a nice deep brown color on one side. You can go ahead and flip them over. So for me, with the beef, what I'm really looking for is like good crispies on both sides, and then I'm gonna pull them off. They don't have to be any more cooked than a hamburger would. Coming in hot with the kofta. Ooh, they look so good. All right, I've got some fun little guys in front of me to construct my pita sandwich with. I have 2 different kinds of cucumbers because that's the kind of person I am. A lemon cucumber. These are my favorite. I love the shape, I love the texture, they're super crunchy. And I've also got a little cucumber. This one actually came from my friend's garden. Isn't that cool? I also have some farmer's market tomatoes, the herbs that were left over from earlier, and then we have some hummus, store-bought, some sriracha, store-bought, and yogurt, not store-bought. One of my favorite people in the whole world made this yogurt, and he happens to be right there. I'm gonna chop the vegetables and get everything ready. No right or wrong when it comes to chopping these vegetables, so I'm just gonna chop them into like nice sized pieces so when you get one, you really notice. You can see it's really fun on the inside. It kind of emulates a lemon. I'm gonna chop this pita in half. And I'm gonna carefully open the center. And then you can layer in whatever you want. Like I have the store-bought hummus. I'm gonna layer in some of Mikael Levine's homemade yogurt. And I'm just gonna fill it in with my little crispy bits. Got my cukes, got my juicy, delicious tomatoes, and now we add our kofta. You can leave them whole, or if you want, you can split them. Look how juicy. Can you see them? Do they look juicy? Okay, and I'm gonna smooch those in there. Maybe I'm gonna put another one in too, because I'm hungry. Then I'll stuff a few more veggies on top of it. And I'm gonna finish it with my herbs that were left over and a little bit of sriracha. This is optional if you're a spicy person. And this is the first dish. It's your homemade delicious kofta turned into a very simple pita sandwich with whatever you've got lying around at home, whatever produce, some hummus if you got it. You could use tzatziki, you can use yogurt, whatever hot sauce. It's just like a, figure out what's in your fridge and use it up, deliciousness. Should I say it again since I was like holding it over here, which is kind of weird? I'm very excited, and we're gonna turn this kofta into 2 more delicious specimens. But first, we must eat. A+. The ras al hanout, gonna change your life. Okay, one more bite. Next up, we're gonna turn our delicious kofta into a Moroccan scramble, and it's just this delicious, flavorful, spicy, sweet, awesome breakfast dish served with some kind of pita bread. The first thing we're gonna do is reheat and crisp up our kofta. So I'm gonna take it over to the pan. So I'm cooking the kofta over a medium heat, and I'm sort of breaking it up with some chopsticks. I didn't add any extra fat to the pan because there's enough fat already in the meat on its own. Once they feel good and crispy to you, we're gonna turn the heat all the way off. So I'm gonna let this pan cool down while we prep our eggs. Whoa, I almost knocked all the eggs off the counter. I'm a 3-egg kind of girl. Pretty. Look at those golden yolks. So I'm gonna add a little bit of salt to this, and I give them a really good whisk. And to make a very creamy scrambled egg, I whisk them until they're bubbly, okay? I'm gonna put the pan back on over low. So I'm adding about a teaspoon of butter. If your butter melts instantly, your pan is too hot. Eggs go in. As soon as your eggs drop, you start scrambling. So that's just pulling the eggs away from the edges and just continuing to go like this until your eggs have set. Then you can pull them off. Before we bring our eggs over, they're done, they're resting, they're sitting in the pan. I'm gonna prep a little beauty to go underneath the scramble. Grab a little bit of that butter from before. You can toast your pita however you like, and I'm using salted butter, my favorite. So that's gonna be the bottom of the scramble. I'm gonna add some avocado. Slice it down the center, and then just gonna peel back the skin so that we can make really nice slices. And then our scramble's gonna get built on top of this guy. And to finish her off, we'll start with some cilantro, and that'll go right on top. Red onion. You could slice this by hand if you want. Put a few of them over our scramble. Add a little bite, a little crunch. I also have a little bit of a jalapeno. I think this dish is really great with a little spice. Finally, I'm gonna finish it with some feta. And maybe I'll grab that little last bit of cilantro. And if you like a little extra salt, you can toss that on. And there you have our second iteration of the kofta. our beautiful, buttery Moroccan scramble. This is really great as a festive brunch, as a breakfast for dinner. You know, anytime you make that kofta, this can be your next meal, and it is so creamy and delicious and fun and unique. Okay, that is scrumptious. Let's make our final kofta dish. A delicious summery salad featuring croutons made out of our leftover pita. While our pan is heating up for the kofta, I'm gonna take 2 pitas and I'm gonna cut them into crouton sizes. Once you have all your pitas nice and chopped, we're actually gonna build our salad in this bowl, but I'm also gonna use it for the croutons. Because why waste? To these guys, I'm gonna add a generous glug of olive oil, some salt, garlic powder. There's no such thing as too much garlic, so. And lastly, za'atar. This is a spice blend that I love, also from that same place I was mentioning, the New York Chouk. It has a nice, kind of earthy, sophisticated flavor. It's almost lemony, bright, and it goes really well with this type of food. So snag yourself some za'atar if you like. And then they get tossed. Make sure they're all evenly coated. Let's check back in with our pan, correspondent pan. Pan, what's the weather? It's medium heat. Now I'm gonna add kofta. We want them kind of big, so I'm just quartering. No oil. Once you've got nice warm kofta, you can take them out of your pan. And we're now gonna cook our pitas in the little bit of leftover deliciousness from the kofta. We just wanna get a nice toasty on these. Put them on a plate to cool. My personal preference whenever I'm building a salad is to do the dressing first, because the longer a dressing sits, the more delicious it gets. I'm just gonna do some olive oil, a splash of apple cider vinegar. Also gonna have fresh lemon juice. I'm also gonna add oregano, a nice pinch of salt. Whisk it up. Smells so good. I'm gonna set her aside. Prep my veggies. I've got some tomatoes. I'll do 2 different kinds of tomatoes. And don't make extra work for yourself. If they're really small already, just leave them whole. I've also got this cucumber. Maybe you recognize these cucumbers from our last recipe. What's this one called? It's a lemon cucumber. Couldn't hear you. Again, no right or wrong. Slice it however you want. You can even be like, I'm gonna slice it 2 different ways. Be sassy. Got some olives. I like Kalamata olives in this because they're super salty. I've also got this red onion, which I will cut just a little bit of. I'm gonna grab some lettuce. Before I add it into the dressing, you have to taste it, because you want it to taste good on the green. Delicious. So I'm just gonna toss in the amount of lettuce that I want, a little bit of salt and pepper onto your greens. And I'm just tossing only the greens with the dressing. They go in the bottom of my bowl. Try to leave behind the rest of that dressing. There's just a little bit left, but it's enough to toss all these. Run away! So I'm gonna put these on top of the lettuce. Next, I'm gonna add our kofta and the croutons that we made. They firmed up so nicely as they've been sitting. And last but not least, optional ingredient, sumac. It's a delicious berry that's a little bit tart and I think is incredibly delicious on salads. I'm gonna finish it with a little squeeze of lemon juice. Now for my favorite time, tasting time. And how cool is it that we made 3 totally different dishes out of that one first dish? It's pretty exciting. And the salad is delicious, and I'm not just saying that because I made it. It's bright, it's fresh, the croutons are delicious and perfectly crispy. We have one last thing to do today, and that's to make our dessert in under 5 minutes without a recipe. I'm gonna show you how to make a magic shell ice cream sundae. If you haven't had magic shell before, it's that like really fun chocolate shell that can harden on ice cream immediately. And I'm gonna take it to the next level. We're gonna make a regular magic shell, and we're also gonna make a peanut butter magic shell, and those are both gonna go on top of ice cream in the form of a sundae. The first thing I do is scoop the ice cream, because I like to put the ice cream back in the freezer so that once you put the magic shell on it, the ice cream is so cold that it hardens really fast and really well. Just gonna get 2 scoops, because I deserve it. Come on. And I'm gonna put my ice cream back in the freezer, and I'm also gonna put my ice cream bowl in the freezer. To make your magic shell, you wanna do 3 parts chocolate chips, 2 parts coconut oil. I prefer a super dark chocolate. These ones are extra dark. Gosh, I suck.
I would forget this bit.
So I'm just gonna eyeball what appears to be about 2/3 of the coconut oil. And then if you wanna make a peanut butter magic shell, you want a creamy peanut butter, and you want 2 parts peanut butter to 1 part coconut oil. So again, I'm just gonna eyeball. If the easiest way to melt these things and get them ready to go is just to put them right into the microwave. So I'm gonna put it in for 15 seconds, and then I'll keep checking them. And I'm just whisking them now to make sure there's no clumps left. And they're warm to the touch, but not at all hot. All right, here's the moment we've all been waiting for. So peanut butter magic shell is gonna go on first, followed by our chocolate. And then get the peanuts and get a little salt. Isn't that insane how fast it happens? It is already rock hard. I'm gonna finish it with some whipped cream and a little cherry. Boop. And that is a magic shell ice cream sundae in under 5 minutes with no recipe. How could this be bad? I don't even need to taste it to know it's delicious, you know? That's a 2-biter. Ladies and germs, thank you so much for letting me invade your living room once again. There you have 3 totally different meals that we've made with the kofta, finished off with an insanely delicious under 5-minute dessert. As a reminder, every week on my Instagram, I am doing a weekly Nosh giveaway. You can enter simply by making all of the dishes that we made today, posting it on Instagram, and tagging me. And then every week I will pick 1 lucky winner who will win a really amazing prize. I had a great time. I look forward to seeing you same time, same place next week. Happy cooking. Can we pretend that was impressive?